Warning, listening to Unleash Your Genius can be good for your health.
Symptoms may include looking and feeling better,
More energy, healthier kids, and increased productivity.
Unleash Your Genius podcast brings you the science, art, and philosophy of health, wellness,
Epigenetics, and lifestyle.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Unleash Your Genius. I'm Brian Peterson. I've got a special guest for you today. Vishnu Narayanan Suresh is originally from India, and he now resides in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's one of the earliest adopters of the Primal Health movement, which was originated by Mark Sisson, and he became a certified health coach 5 years ago. His first and still his toughest client as a health coach was his mother, which you'll hear about in the episode. And I hope you'll help me to welcome Vishnu. Vishnu, how are you today?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Hey, I know I've briefly introduced you, but can you please expand on that a little bit and tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Sure. So I am a consultant and I work in a regular office job for the most part of my week. And for a long time, I was happy with my health, and as a consultant, there's only so much time you get off work to do stuff that you want to do with regard to your health. But I quickly came to the realization that a lot of things that I was doing in terms of the workouts and the standard conventional information that I was receiving through all the usual sources, those things were not working out for me. And you can couple that with the fact that as a child, I was always tagged obese, and I didn't really know what it meant until I was like 16. I thought obese meant healthy because, it is something that is not really considered a health risk among the majority of, say, the middle class back home in India. We tend to focus on education and jobs a little bit more than, say, personal health. So I came from an environment where I hadn't really paid too much attention to my health per se, but I was very aware of the fact that my family did have history with heart disease risk and the blood pressure risk. So one fine day, I stumbled upon this website called Mark's Daily Apple, and that was 4 years ago. And that was when really I started to question a lot of the beliefs that I had held for the most part of my life regarding health. And the past 4 years have been a transformative experience for me. And I'm sure we'll get into the details of that too. Sure.
Wow. So is there a heart risk or a heart disease problem going on in India?
That's a very good question. I would say the question has a nuance to it. So in India, yes, the rates of heart disease and heart disease related, the usual, say, the Western lifestyle health risks, which we find, in the media, that is on the rise for sure. But it's still, as of now, if you look at India, the risk is pretty low, or say the incidences of heart disease and cardiovascular disease in general is lower than, say, in the US. However, the key thing is that when folks who are of Indian ethnic origin, when they move to the US and they change their lifestyle to that of, say, a conventional Western lifestyle, then you find that they have much higher risks than an average, say, American, and when I say American, I mean, say, a white Caucasian. It is a huge difference, and it's kind of amazing to see that in the, say, if you normalize for environments to be, say, the US in terms of, say, the food lifestyle, the food and the work lifestyle, which you gain by being in the US, and you put all different kind of ethnic groups, right? Because the US is this amazing melting pot of all different cultures. You would be surprised to find that South Asians, folks from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, from this folks from the subcontinent have actually among the highest risks for heart disease. And it is something that I believe is a very important message that may not always be talked about. And I myself came to know of this only because I happened to chance upon a book by a doctor called as Dr. Ronesh Sinha, Mr. Sinha. So he has a book called The South Asian Health Solution. And in this book, he basically talks about the really it's just a stark risk that South Asians in general have when they are in the Western environment.
Right. So do you think it has is there a relationship between diet and lifestyle and the heart disease is it East Indians?
Yes. So I think it is it has at least two components in my opinion. Like one of them for sure is the diet. Yes. I think one would find that there is probably more say vegetables and more I would say there are less packaged foods and less say ready-made foods that are consumed by the average household in India, and that in and of itself would be a big factor in terms of say the amount of the bad fats, the trans fats, and so on that you find in the packaged foods. But I think a second factor there, specifically with, say, East Asians, and I mean Southeast Asians from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, could actually be a genetic risk. And I think that's where most of the more recent research is pointing towards, that there are pretty distinct genetic variations that certain populations have gained over just a short period of say 5,000 to 6,000 years. And I say short in the context of the usual time that evolution takes to actually make a huge change, right?
Right. So what you read is there would be a genetic predisposition to the new lifestyle that they come into predisposes them to increased risk. Is that?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous mix of both a lifestyle change as well as a risk, the inherent risk, a genetic risk. Yeah.
Vishnu, what about smoking? Is smoking more prevalent in South Asian cultures than it is in maybe some other cultures?
I would say that for sure that smoking is there as a cultural, say, I would call it as a it's kind of like a romanticizing of your engineering or the college times, but I wouldn't say it is by any means any more widespread than it's there in the US. But I would say that the decrease in smoking as a behavior is much more in the US than say it's in India, for example. Like it's not yet. I shouldn't say that. I think the US and the West has made great strides in showcasing the health risks of smoking. I think it's still in the process of getting to that stage back in India.
So I heard you mention Mark Sisson and the Primal Blueprint. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Vishnu?
Yeah. So, I basically stumbled upon Mark's website called Mark's Daily Apple. And it's actually funny. I was actually I searched Google for the best wheat that I can eat, right? So I used to be a huge fan of wheat, and I still am, but back in the day, I was very fond of wheat. And I stumbled upon a link, which was probably in the top 2 or 3, and it said, no wheat is good for you. And I was like, no way, that's not true. I know my doctors have always told me that multigrain wheat is awesome for you, right?
Right.
So I had to read that link. And that link opened my eyes a little bit to the various facets of, the different kinds of carbohydrates and the fats, and how there is a slight mix up in say what the research shows versus what the doctors or even the governments at a macro scale have made legislation and recommendations for. And so this opening experience for me was 4 years ago. And over those 4 years, I have successfully, and I would say thankfully, been able to modify some of my lifestyle and my dietary habits. And about a year and a half ago, I came to know that Mark and his team, the Primal Blueprint, had launched one of the first paleo health certification courses. And so, in fact, I signed up for it in the first month itself. And I am happy to say that I'm a certified health coach from Mark's Daily Apple.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what do you do about non-bread, Vishnu? I mean, isn't that a tradition? That was one of the hardest things for me to give up. And it's not even part of my culture.
I'll be honest, I really don't have much interaction with Mr. Naan these days, I would say that it is possible to make alternatives for it. But from, say, a perspective of making the lifestyle change, I did start out by making alternatives to slot in for the items that I had removed, right? Like, for example, I initially did want to eat a lot of rice, but I started out by exchanging it for quinoa, and then I went on to something like, say, cauliflower rice, which is excellent and goes with almost any curry or any kind of a gravy you have. But eventually, like now, I just don't feel a need to have naan or rice. But I must say, it took time. But I think ultimately at this point, I really don't feel a desire to have any of the conventional dishes that might not be the best for me in terms of my health right now. Right.
That's been one of my biggest, probably my biggest cheat meal is the garlic naan bread that I don't, and I have clients who are Indian as well. And when I talk about, going primal or giving up wheat, that's a hard, major stalling point for a lot of people.
And I can say that definitely there is a way out if someone wants to be enterprising. So one of the big observations from the various research, that goes around, especially there's this amazing blog by Dr. Peter Attia, and you might be aware of him, but he has this blog called as The Eating Academy, and he is this amazing self-experimenter and self-researcher, and some of his findings have been really eye-opening. So one of the key issues with eating carbohydrates in general, like say the wheat or bread in any form, like naans, cakes, and so on, is that when you eat them, the body tries to store them in some form, right? But because the body can only carry so much sugar in the blood at any given point of time, it is stored as fat. And that's why, there is, at least that's one of the easier to understand risks of sugar or carbohydrates. Now, there is a hack to this. So the hack is that if you as an individual have done an intense physical activity, meaning a workout, a sprint session, a jog, something that has worked the muscles, what happens is that the muscles actually consume the glycogen stores that are stored in the muscles, right? And the first time you eat a meal that has any amount of carbs in it, those carbs go towards replenishing these emptied glycogen stores in the muscle. Okay, so the hack is to anyone out there who wants to say have that little bit of naan or bread or wheat or a pizza piece, is to hopefully maybe save it for maybe just once or twice a week. Okay, that's the first goal. But even when you do so, to try and do it after a pretty good workout, because then you can minimize the bad impacts of having wheat. So yeah, in fact, like if you have had, say, a pretty good workout for like 45 minutes and you've worked out all of your body, you can eat, I would say, some amount of carbs with minimal impact to your fat burning state or your fat burning metabolism.
So you've helped a few of your friends and you've helped some other people change their lifestyles as well. Is that right?
That's true. So I would say the biggest issue, or I should say the biggest obstacle for me in the beginning was trying to assure my mom, because you can imagine, right? I mean, when you grow up and, everybody listens to what the doctor has to say. And it is, I mean, conventional wisdom is probably the only wisdom that's there, especially in, say, in India, where there is, again, as I mentioned, there's not enough of, say, cultural awareness around health and the benefits of health as much as it is seen in the West, So there is definitely a lack of good questioning of science, so to speak, at least in the health field. So my mom was convinced in the beginning that if I ate all of these saturated fats, that I was going to get, a heart attack.
Right.
So it took me a good 6 months to kind of say track my own cholesterol levels and to show to her that, hey, you know what, my cholesterol has actually improved so much that the doctor has even stopped asking me what I eat, because he knows I eat a lot of eggs, I eat a lot of butter and coconut oil, and it doesn't gel well with conventional wisdom. But it took me a while to convince my mom. But once I convinced my mom, it was great because, it gave me the confidence that, that if my mom, who is this staunch believer in conventional wisdom, or at least who used to be, could be changed, then I could probably at least give an alternative option to some of my friends who might be looking for that. Because ultimately, I don't necessarily believe that the paleo lifestyle is the best way for everyone, because we are all different in terms of our genetic expression, our lifestyles, and so on.
Right.
But I certainly believe that to folks who have not found great success with the conventional approach, the paleo approach or the low carb approach is definitely a viable approach, and it's definitely worth a shot. So I have convinced my mom and my dad to be partially on the paleo bandwagon. And I have about 5 to 6 friends who are in my immediate circle who have seen me change, physically change from being someone who was kind of okay and fit to being someone who has eventually become lean and mean, and I have not been to a gym in 4 years, and I don't go to a gym at all. All of my workouts, which I call the workouts, are basically the play sessions. So I try to do my best at showcasing an alternative way to stay fit without having to resort to the dieting, in quotes, dieting, or without resorting to extreme gym sessions.
Right. I love that you call it a play session.
Yeah. I feel like, again, it's one of those things that I kind of have to thank Mark Sisson for, because he constantly reinforces and tries to convey the message that, we are all living beings, and ultimately we will stick to a plan if the plan is rewarding. One way that any kind of a lifestyle plan can be rewarding is, of course, if you see the actual benefits of it in terms of, say, your body composition changing, your health changing, but also the actual act of, say, eating the foods that you want to eat and the workouts that you do. They can only stick if they can if they're able to call out to the human nature in us, which is to have fun. Ultimately, life, the essence of life is to be able to enjoy it and appreciate it. And I think I take great joy in trying to use things like playing soccer, rock climbing, sprint sessions with a couple of my friends. We challenge each other to see how many times we can sprint up a hill. And it's just trying to think of it in terms of play more than say a workout that helps to keep it going and to keep it engaging.
Yeah, it's hard to keep doing something that you don't like doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, Vishnu, I just want to change gears a little bit. I'd like to put you up on the spotlight, up on the stage. So
Okay.
you've been invited to speak in front of 500 men and women that are just about to embark on a 90-day lifestyle challenge. So they're going to start changing how they eat, how they exercise, meditate for 90 days. So what 3 things would you want to cover in that speech to help these people give their best chance for success, and why?
Okay. The first thing that I would want to inform them and assure them is that good health is simple in the sense that it is really 80 to 90% of all good health comes from the food you eat. And there is a beautiful Chinese saying which says that food is medicine and medicine is food. And in essence, we must remind ourselves that we don't go to the doctor or say we don't take a medicine to solve an issue, but rather good food and good dietary modifications are medicine in and of itself. So 90% of the good health that anybody in this world would want to seek is right there in the food you eat. It's not about how many hours you put into the gym. It's not about how many miles you've run. It's really about being aware that food is truly what can mold you as a body and what can mold your health in itself. And then the second thing that I would love to mention to the audience is that exercise does come in. Yes, exercise helps to tone the body. And again, one of the things that is important as a human being and as a living organism is that the body always tries to salvage itself. And what I mean by that is if we do not use a particular part of the body to its bare minimum requirement, then the body starts to slowly try and take that away because it's all about efficiency. And that's what we call as the atrophy. So in addition to good food, one must do just the bare minimum amount of exercise to allow the body to maintain its status of being able to do events X, Y, and Z. And it's only a bare minimum of exercise that is required. And the third piece I would say is to try and connect with others. One of the biggest joys I have when I walk around and if I meet someone and we happen to talk about alternative lifestyles, and it's amazing that folks know about the paleo lifestyle or know about the low carb lifestyle, and everybody is really interested in knowing what happens. So one key thing that we might miss out is to not think of it as a journey that we are on by ourselves. It's actually a journey that a lot of individuals around, have chosen to take because the conventional wisdom is not working for you. And, it's not an easy choice because the whole world is going to point fingers at you and tell you that's wrong. That's not what the doctor says. But just remember that, it's you as a person who have decided to take this lifestyle challenge. You are a brave person. You're brave because you have chosen to truly put these lifestyle methodologies to test while others haven't. And it's not easy to put it to test. And I just think it is amazing that there are so many wonderful people who have shared their experiences, and that sense of a community and that sense of keeping in touch with the community is a huge part of being able to hold on to those 90 days and complete the challenge successfully.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Vishnu. That was brilliant.
Thanks, Brian.
Unleash Your Genius, the podcast we're really about breaking the chains that's been placed on our health due to the modern lifestyle that we live in these days. And as you know, changing habits can be difficult. Can you describe or tell us a time when you challenged or you had a challenge in changing your lifestyle?
Oh, yes. I can give two examples. The first one was, of course, when I first initially started out on the paleo lifestyle. And as you can imagine, someone who used to eat healthy multi-wheat sandwiches every day and had a lot of soda and pop, it was a really big challenge to try and move away from that sort of a lifestyle, because the palate is habituated to certain foods, and when you try to change them initially, there is a big, I would say it was a struggle to meet my mental requirements of taste and the overwhelming taste of food. But what happened was, soon enough, within a few weeks, it's amazing how the body and the palate realigns itself. And then, like now, for example, if I eat a strawberry, I'm like, that is really sweet. Whereas back in the day, if I had a strawberry, I would have barely registered any sweetness at all.
Right.
So that challenge is definitely tough in the beginning. And I think the key thing that helped me again was keeping in mind what my goal was, and that the goal was something really worth fighting for, which in my case was better health, losing some of my excess weight, and and I think ultimately knowing that once I'm there after these 2 weeks and I don't feel a desire to have the sweets or all of these sugary items, I will be in control of my life. So, and not be controlled by food in itself. So that was one challenge that I had at the beginning of my lifestyle change.
That is such great advice. Sorry to interrupt, Vishnu, but yeah, you're right that, when you're struggling through a change, that keeping your eye on the final goal is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I can give you a more recent example, which is kind of a sad example. So over most of the past 4 years, I have been an avid fan of long distance running. And until about, say, May 2015, I had done about 19 half marathons in a span of 2.5 years.
Wow.
And I had just completed my first full marathon in Cincinnati. It's called the Flying Pig, and it's a really fun and hilly marathon. And I managed to do this first full marathon in under 4 hours, and I was excited. I was really happy. But somehow, over the course of the training for the full marathon and the marathon itself, I managed to hurt my knee. And so I had a period of about 6 to 8 months. In fact, I should say almost a year, because it's only a couple of months ago that I have started to run again, that I had a whole year of not running. So for someone who used running as one of, say, a big cornerstones of staying fit, I was forced to reevaluate my strategy, because, I am still living the paleo food lifestyle, but now my energy expenditure in my body was so different because I'm not running anymore. So the big challenge for me was in recognizing this change in my body output. So basically, I had to pay closer attention to my body and to really see whether I was hungry when I was hungry, or whether I was just desiring this habitual eating, So it's not just folks who are, on the conventional lifestyle who may struggle with habitual eating. I totally believe, all of us, including those who are, hardcore paleo or on the low carb, high fat lifestyle. Like I struggle with trying to bring my desire to eat in control because I was habituated to having a late lunch and an early dinner when I used to run. And even after, so once I stopped running, I had to change that to be more of, say, either, like a lighter lunch and a lighter dinner both, or actually even in fact, just one big meal. And it took me a good 2 to 3 months to get that balance back. And in that meantime, in between, I struggled with a little bit of weight gain. And there were a few issues, that I had to kind of say, resolve myself, because any kind of an event can happen, one could stop having the luxury of being able to run, or there could be a change in your workplace environment. There could be n number of factors that can throw you off the balance, But I think, again, one thing to keep in mind is that, we as a species, we are, if not anything, we are designed to be adaptable. And I think having the right knowledge in hand can help one, hopefully, try and readapt to the new situation and still make the best of it.
Right. So you've been following this diet and lifestyle for 4 years now, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So initially you would have struggled, and you had some plans, some cheat meals. Now that you've been doing this for a few years, do you still have those cheat meals occasionally? So
I want to answer that in two parts again. The first part is, if you ask me if I have a desire to have a cheat meal, the answer would be no. I really don't have a desire. I think I used to have it for a while in the first 6 to 8 months, but then I kind of lost the desire, and I haven't really felt like eating a pizza. I mean, I make my own pizzas now. That's a whole different story. But I don't feel like going out and having a pizza or like having, a huge amount of the conventional foods. But on the other hand, do I cheat sometimes? Yes. That's because, sometimes it is more akin to, let's say, if I go home and if my mom makes me a wonderful dish, which happens to be non-paleo or which happens to be non-low carb, the fact that it is the compassion and love of my mom that is in the food overweighs the fact that, the food is in some ways bad for me health-wise. But of course, I eat it and then I convey in the most humble way I can to my mom that I would love your food, but I would also love it if it were more along these lines, So I don't myself seek a cheat meal, but sometimes cheat meals come my way and I do take it.
Nice. It's pretty bad for you to turn down your mom's food anyways, isn't it?
I know. It's never recommended, no.
Hey, Vishnu, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to get a little bit more about you, get to know you a little bit more, and just run through a few really quick questions. Can you tell us what your favorite book is?
There's this book that I would love to recommend. It's called The Paleo Manifesto. Yes, so The Paleo Manifesto is by John Durant, Durant, and it's an amazing book because it actually, be it whether you're a complete new person to the ideology of the low carb lifestyle or whether you're an experienced paleo lifestyle liver, the book has equal parts funny as well as it's got some great insights, and it just makes you think really well. It's a book that I find entertaining, and I enjoy sharing the book with my friends.
Do you have a favorite quote or motto?
I have a favorite quote, yes. It is by Mahatma Gandhi, and it says, "Hate the sin, not the sinner." And I just want to put it out there that, this is so applicable in all fields of life. There will always be folks who differ in opinions with us, and it is a natural human reaction to feel personally affected by someone's opposition to our beliefs that are held. But I think it's always a very good reminder to oneself to not try and hate the sinner, or say, by which I mean not try to hate someone who does not agree with you, but rather, if you are convinced of your stance, then hate the ideology. So, for example, I guess this goes really strongly in terms of, say, the low-carb lifestyle, because, I believe that most low-carb livers are very passionate about this lifestyle. And sometimes someone who may not live the lifestyle and may mock the lifestyle can easily make, someone get, riled up maybe. But it's always important to realize, that it's okay, hate the idea of conventional wisdom and conventional ideology, but don't try to hate on people who practice that lifestyle.
Right. Hey, Vishnu, what's one question that I should have asked you?
I don't know. I feel like you could ask me what my hobbies are or something of that sort.
We didn't talk about your motorcycling at all.
Oh, wow. I didn't even mention it to you, but you already know about it.
Google's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so I got into motorcycling for the first time when I was in India. But I'll be honest, like in India, as it is in many other countries in Asia and in Africa, you get on a motorcycle kind of like how you get on a bicycle, meaning almost everybody has a motorcycle. So I did not really know much about why I did what I did, but I just knew how to ride a motorcycle. And when I came to the US, I joined up to do the motorcycle safety foundation course that's there in every state. Yeah. And that was so amazing. It just opened my eyes to the whole world of two-wheel riding. And I have since, I've done about 30,000 miles in the last 2.5 years on the two motorcycles I've had. I've taken solo trips from Cincinnati to New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and back, and up to Chicago and down to Nashville. It's just been, I've been moved and changed really by the experience of solo motorcycling. And in some ways, I must say, it kind of ties into the idea that, you stand out from the conventional wisdom, which says that being on two wheels is totally unsafe. You're going to injure yourself, and that is true. There is a higher risk, but I think that is really the definition of life in itself. There is always some risk, and you are willing to take some risk for that.
Right. So, do you go with groups, or you said you go solo? Do you have
it's a mix of it. So sometimes, for example, like I used to have this beautiful bike called as the Honda ST 1100, and there is a passionate group of Honda ST riders across the country and actually across the world too, from Canada, Mexico, and most of Europe. So there are kind of monthly and like various events that are held in different states of the US. And I make it a point to try and meet up with the Ohio ST meetup events, even though I now don't have an ST, because it's that community. And it's a group of wonderful people who have so many stories to share and so much wisdom to offer to someone like me who's still, just a few years into riding the right way.
Awesome. Hey, Vishnu, how can people get in touch with you?
That's a great question. I currently do not have, a business outlet, but I definitely am available on social media, on Facebook at Vishnu NS 39620. That's my Facebook page, and I am open to everyone. I also maintain a blog called paleogyan.com, PALEOGYAN.com. I post a lot of stuff on the blog linked to motorcycling, paleo living, photography, and rock climbing, among other things. But I am very active on the blog, and I make sure that I reply to anyone who posts a comment.
Excellent. Thanks, Vishnu. It's been fantastic having you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brian, it was really fun to talk to you too.
Thanks so much for listening to Unleash Your Genius with your host, Dr. Brian Peterson. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit unleashyourgenius.com. We'll catch you next time.